Hello, hello, hello. I am author and entrepreneur, the cerebral palsy vigilante, Zachary Fino, once again joined by a co-host of sorts, Daryl Perry of Your Level Fitness. We are both, today's conversation is going to be about artificial intelligence, AI, for anyone who's been seeing that AI and be like, well, what's that mean? It's artificial intelligence. But I'm assuming you already knew that. So I don't need, I'm just being silly at this point. So Daryl and I are both, in big in the content space. And I think that is why this conversation really is important to the two of us. And before we go any further and I babble on any further, let's just start by Daryl. When you hear AI, artificial intelligence, what comes to your mind? What's that, instantaneous, what's first thing comes
So,
to your mind?
so the first thing that comes to mind, I think there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of things being overblown on both sides. People that think AI is the greatest invention ever, that it's going to solve all of these problems, and then I think the other way where people are like, well, we shouldn't have this at all. I think some of that stuff is overblown. I do think you mentioned working in the content space. I think it has changed the game a lot, and that's a cliche statement, but in this case, I think it fits because if you're an actual creative or an actual practitioner, if you can get past the initial blow of, oh my gosh, this craft that I have developed that's taken me years, that has taken all this time, effort, and energy, now somebody can generate that in a matter of seconds. It's a shot to the it's a gut punch at first, but if you really think about it, I think the this is the to use the old Macho Man Randy Savage adage, the cream rises to the top. And I think the days of people just being able to generate, like, and I was telling you this, it took me 15 seconds, here's a 300-page book. I think the days of that actually being worthwhile to people, those days are done. That was a very limited time with AI because honestly, we were all we all had too much information being thrown at us to begin with. So the last thing we need is somebody to be taking this information and throwing it at us. So while I say on the extremes, I think there are things that are being overblown. I do think there's some real conversations that we need to have around, you know, ownership of people's work. You know, where is the source material for this thing that you generated? Where is that coming from? Um, I personally, I think it's for because I do a lot of talking and I do a lot of recording and I have transcripts. I like using that for rough drafts that I can fine tune. I also had a piece of content, and I might have told you this before, where I basically I was doing stuff for my website and I did like the SEO stuff on my own. And because I was a copywriter, did that for a couple of years at one of the marketing agencies I worked for. And then I asked the AI to score it. He gave me like a 68. Now, granted, the AI is scoring it, but there are going to be some instances where you're writing for machines where it does make sense. But I think there are some real issues with, who you're stealing people's work. I think when it comes to jobs, I mean, because I've worked in marketing and advertising, those if you can land a job, it's always about more output, more output, more output, which I think companies are getting it wrong all across the board. But I think for the right people, the people that actually have the skills, there are creative ways to use AI, but you got to keep your thoughts and your wits about you and not just rely on the machines to actually get to that point.
A lot you said in there that we could really dissect further and go over more. My hesitation, as we've discussed before offline, and I think in another video we've discussed it a little bit. Uh, my issue with AI is being someone who is a creator, who, whether it's blog posts or the books I've written with my hands and my brain and not with a machine. Uh, the idea of where that, because AI is if you're generating images for a blog post or a book cover, AI is generating those images from what's already out there.
Yeah.
And where does the copyright land? Where does the copyright? I'm not trying to infringe on anyone's copyright. So that has always been for me a big reason that I've kind of been hesitant about diving into some of these AI tools to use for content and rather spend my time on Canva or just in general. But you talk about using AI to score your to score your writing and see where things. I have for my blog, I have a Jetpack, and they have a when you write something, you put it in there, it has this assessment when it comes to search everything optimization, that it's like, okay, this is good or this isn't good. And sometimes they'll be like, well, the focus keyword you chose isn't appearing enough times. And that's where sometimes it's like you have to find a balance between. So basically, what I'm saying is like I'm using, because that assessment, that's them using a software to analyze what I wrote and deduce whether or not it is search engine friendly. And so that, or how much a search engine friendly it is, which kind of speaks to, I mean, would you agree or disagree? That's a form of AI right there.
So yeah, and this I think is a big topic, because everything like actual artificial intelligence that helps us do the things we do has been around for a long time. And I love that you mentioned Jetpack. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a WordPress site in years, but that was a good callback on that. But I mean, like, so yeah, it's a tool that helps you. I also I also use Canva, and I can't tell you how many graphic designer friends that I have would like, have the pitchforks ready and like yell at me when Canva first started to really gain traction, because they're like, we went to school for this. We use, the Adobe suite, and how dare like you're because it's kind of the same thing. I know on there, like, I think you can submit templates and stuff and get credit as the artist, but there's a lot of designers that feel the same way. And I think what you brought up there at the end is absolutely it. It's like there's different levels to this. I do agree, like, supposedly, if you're generating something, it's not necessarily going to be a straight copy of someone else's work. But I think there's been enough instances to know that these programs aren't being monitored enough, and they're not giving enough credit to the actual, like, attributing credit to the original creator. So what's happening is, yeah, you don't know where that image is coming from. And if you're somebody that looks at it and is just like, that is just like, I don't, this isn't fair. You're not, giving proper credit for the work. I totally understand it. I think when we're talking about creatives, if you're someone that does not like AI at all and you don't want to use it, then absolutely, like, stick to your guns, because if you continue to use your processes and structures to create the things that you've always created, there's a place for that, because you're competing with people that don't know what the heck they're doing, right? So like, they're just that and again, I do think it's important to say, like, I think most people are now smartening up to what is AI and what isn't. And I think when it comes down to it, in most cases, we don't want to we don't want to mess with AI. I will say the YouTube videos with just the AI generated voiceovers and stuff with the same like 5 or 10 voices, like turn my stomach every time I hear them. However, there was a true crime narrator that's been around he was around for years, and it's clearly they have figured out an AI version of his voice, and it's pretty good. So even though I know this is like the standard, they've got a script that they feed in, and it's reading in this voice, I'm watching it and I'm like, this is close enough to this guy's voice for what I want, which is I want to watch some true crime stuff. It kind of works. So I mean, it's interesting because we all have a different comfort level with this stuff. I don't think it can't replace jobs. I don't think it's going to be able to. However, that doesn't mean that companies aren't going to try it, because companies are struggling with a lot of things right now. And the AI seems to be the future prospects of AI seem to be the big promise right now, which if you follow the tech companies at all, they're big on what the future is going to be, but not really like what it can do right now. So,
I think one of the biggest difficulties that comes with discussing AI is trying to nail down exactly what AI is. And this would actually be a fun point for those watching to comment below. So like mentioning jetpack was my way of kind of saying like, oh, there's like I use AI without even really like thoroughly, without thinking about it, and it's a tool in my belt that I use. So I feel like we've become so accustomed to AI now, and I keep saying AI, and what's bugging me about it is it's just like, what are we defining? Like, what makes a computer software program a computer software program, and then what makes it AI? Like, there's that, but the whole point is like when you just do a Google search these days.
Yeah.
How many people watching this right now, when you do your Google search, do you just go to that AI overview, take that answer, and be like, yep, that's it? Or are you searching down in your search results to be like, okay, so for perfect example, in preparation of today's discussion, I went to Google and I, and I asked, actually, let me see if I can pull this up. I Googled what is, artificial intelligence. And then I scrolled down to NASA, because I feel like if you're going to talk about a source, that I skipped the AI overview. I went to NASA, and that's where like even NASA, their so artificial intelligence refers to computer systems that can perform complex tasks normally done by human reasoning, decision making, trading, etc. There's no single simple definition of artificial intelligence, because AI tools are capable of a wide range of tasks and outputs. We're going to, foremost, but I just give you an example of like, so when we're even in our daily lives using Google to search something, how many of, like, once again, comment, let us know. And are you going down and are you finding that source? Or are you just going to the AI overview right away and say, oh, that's the answer?
And I think it's a slippery slope if we're using AI as the definition if we're trying to define AI for exactly what you just said. Because basically, if we're saying that it's any type of software or that is assisting with something that a human could do, that could be anything. I think the thing that most people are getting frustrated about right now is the generative AI, where you're putting in the prompts and the requests, and then it's generating the images, it's generating the text that like you're plagiarizing.
Yeah.
Now it's funny though, because if we really want to like go back and like needle on it and get into the weeds on it, Google is artificial intelligence because you're putting a search query in. I mean, it really is endless. But I think the thing in my workflow, um, I like I when I send emails out every day to like different groups. They have a set email. They know what time it's coming out. I schedule those ahead of time. Now, so I'm sending those automatically, and I'm using a platform to do that. But I think if we're using artificial intelligence to have more one-on-one human interaction, person to person, I think that's different too. Because when I send these emails out, if you ever get them and hit reply, it goes right to my main email. So you're then talking to me. So I think if we're using AI to free up our time to do other things that we wouldn't have as much time to do, I think that's a way that I try to look at it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where you just say AI and it could mean anything. Included one of the most underrated point guards in NBA history. But but it really it's definitely a topic of conversation. I think being a couple years into it, I think everybody's aware of it now. I think everybody has opinions of it. um I just I think but I think there's starting to be a pretty sizable pushback on it too, because we're overwhelmed with it now. I don't think we want to see all this AI stuff all the time.
And the time aspect of it is something you just brought up, which I think, well, first, what you brought up that I think was really key for me to hear to kind of, as far as this discussion goes, is, so AI is this broad thing, but where things kind of really get murky and complicated is with generative AI. And I think, having that outline helps a lot in the guidance of the conversation of when we're talking about AI is like, as someone who, because when I think of AI, that's what I'm thinking of is the
Yeah.
uh, generative AI, and that's the stuff where I'm hesitant to touch. But I am also on the, it's like I mentioned Jetpack. There are just those other aspects, other software. If you do a Google search for a topic you want to do a video on or a blog post on, and then you search down, usually they have other suggestions of what people are searching for, and that gives you a chance to be like, oh, maybe I should use this phrase. Maybe that will help this piece of content be found. So there are ways to use AI as a helpful tool as opposed to just a replacement for human thinking, which is, I think, where we both kind of sit as far as our concerns with generative AI in particular, that there's going to be this thought process of the thought process gets lost and it's just put these words misspelled into a generator, and then it's going to generate the blog post for me, and I'm not going to have enough intelligence myself to read through it and be like, well, those three sentences all started the same, and that was redundant, like those kind of issues. So I think with time, it's like, okay, AI is saving you time. So what are you going to then in return? What are you doing with that?
Well,
I think
I think one thing you said that's really important there is like I think of like the AI starts cannibalizing itself. Like when the source material is just AI slop that nobody's really checked the details on. And I mean, there's always people will always post the screenshots of like, you know, inaccurate information. And they're like, yeah, I'm not worried about AI like taking my job long term, which I think is the right way to. I think there's limitations on this. I think there really is, and I think um, I I also I think there's limitations on AI. I think taking time away. I'm bigger on reading physical books. I used to read from a Kindle when I would read, but now I'm like, give me the physical book. Let me sit outside away from anything electronic. And that's where I like to read. I think it's important to connect with yourself. I think it's important to not like connect with your brain, not just let it turn to mush, which absolutely happens if you start punting all of your tasks to artificial intelligence. So, and I think that's what some of the pushback is now too, because I think, I mean, again, like in a world where anybody can produce anything that just looks like it's quality until you start to read it, like there's really an advantage for people that aren't going in that direction or are figuring out ways to use it in a different way. And I mean, I remember I heard a guy, I was at the gym one day. This has been probably, I don't know, it's probably been a year and a half. And he was so excited because he's like, I get to put together all these guides and people will sign up and it only takes me 10 seconds to do it and I can send them the guide. And it's like, I'm thinking, why would anybody want to like consume that? I think one of the biggest challenges for content creators right now is can you deliver a message in a very direct way? Because so many other people can't, because they are, using AI to generate these blog posts that are like, 20,000 words and they're sending these emails that your eyes glaze over 2 sentences into because they're so long. I think if you actually know how to communicate, whether that's written, whether that's verbal or however, I think there is an advantage for you in that.
And that kind of goes back to something you said at the beginning of our conversation that I wanted to touch back on. And it wasn't the word you particularly used, but it's the word I thought of. There's a lot of noise out there with content. You mentioned that people just think more, like I have to be producing. And I understand that from the perspective of, I believe that's what helps with the algorithm but of course the algorithm is always changing. But the more you produce, the more it shows that you're active, the more likely you're going to be found in search engines, and that means you're going to be found and you're going to be considered an authoritarian voice. But at the same time, it's like with so much crap out there, just be blunt. It's like, what are you producing? Like, I would rather put out one blog post a month than put out, a blog post every day that is just redundant or doesn't have a point and it's just, something to, you're producing for the sake of producing rather than producing because you have a message to share.
So I love that you said that because I think, one, it is too noisy on social media. And I think social media over the last, probably back before 2020, was starting to go this way, where it's not about the actual person creating the content. It's about that individual piece of content. And there's no real connection. So like somebody might see your video and they'll like it. They might comment. They might even follow you. But there's no guarantee that they're going to see any more of your content because the algorithm, the almighty algorithm, might decide that there's something better for them. I think, and it's kind of, on one hand, I think you're going to agree with me on this. On the other hand, I think it's a different point of view. I think the best opportunity, because social media itself is so noisy, are things like podcasts, are things like blogs, because I would rather have, and because I've, I mean, if you have videos that get hundreds or thousands of views, what does that mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything. It means that they stopped for like half a second to look at something. I like podcast listens. I like to, and a lot of the website traffic is, I mean, the way I mean, because I have my Google Analytics set up to where I can see different events and things like that. And I've got my two main Your Level Fitness sites where they're synced up on like one thing, so I can like actually make sense of what's going on there. But like, I would much rather take my chances with people finding my podcast, and then at the end of the podcast, I will put call to actions to the other stuff. Because my main thing is I want to get people into the websites to either sign up for a subscription product, which there's no better way to like sample what I'm about than listen to a podcast. Like if I'm still holding your interest 5 or 10 minutes in, these are shorter ones. I do longer ones too. But like that would make sense for me to be like, hey, if you really like this, if you want more of this, here's a list of all the podcasts I do, yourlevelfitness.com/podcasts. And then what I'll say is if you want even more than that, I do live streams 4 nights a week that are independent of social media. I think actually having infrastructure outside of social media, yourlevelfitness.com/community for anybody listening. I think that's very important because social media is like getting people to do stuff getting people to do stuff on social media besides stay on that social media platform is really hard to do. And I've noticed that because I'll run ads, and I've noticed if I'm running ads and the goal is to get people to follow me on social media, that doesn't cost a lot. You can build your following up pretty quickly on that. But if I'm running an ad where I want them to go to a page and sign up for something, and it's usually email, like those can be somewhat successful. But even then, like they came from social media, usually you got to offer them something that isn't necessarily what you normally have in most cases. It's not as impactful as if I just say at the end of a podcast episode, if you like this, sign up for the journal prompt email that I send out. Like I think podcasts and websites are the ways that we can actually build relationships with people. Now, I mentioned I have AI models that will tell me things that people are searching for, and that in the industry I'm in fitness that people are talking about, and things that people aren't talking about, and things that are emerging topics. So the way I have the blogs set up on my website are these searchable guides to be pulled in by the search engines and to be pulled in by AI. And what you're doing is I do post a lot of blog posts, but what I do is I want them to be short to basically answer a question, and then I'll go in and edit them. And a lot of what I do with the editing, that'll be the first introduction to like the Your Level Fitness branded verbiage. Because I have things that I call stuff within YLF that makes sense to people that are in the ecosystem. But like if I use Forever Active Lifestyle in like an SEO optimized title, nobody's going to know what that is. So the blog post, if I can catch their attention with the question that they have, give them an answer to that question, and start introducing them to the Your Level Fitness ecosystem with some of the language. And then at the bottom of each blog post, if you're brand new to Your Level Fitness, it redirects them to the homepage. Or if you want to go ahead and join the community, actually I send them to the Find Your Level, because I've got different tiers to stuff. So like I do it like that, where I have a few different blogs on the site. I have a lot of smaller posts. I optimize everything, but it's intentional with a purpose. And I don't think a lot of people, again, we're talking about a lot of the critical thinking stuff. I don't think a lot of people that are trying to just, put this AI slop out, I don't think they're being all that thoughtful with it. So in that case, I think what you're saying is, look, I put out one quality blog post, like that's going to get more quality people to your blog. And I think at the end of the day, whether we're talking anything for content, I think we need to focus more on quality versus quantity, which also ties into the AI conversation.
Very much so. Keyword you said within what you just shared was relationship.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're building. I have Daryl, right, since he's with us, we're having right now with you, the viewer watching this, is we have a relationship. We are nearing 30 minutes into this video. You've stayed for this long. Thank you for that. But it's really, rather than being measured in views, like engagement is really where the true measurement, in my opinion, comes in, where it's like, are you getting people to like your video, comment on your video, subscribe, and even take it to another level, as you were just talking about, Daryl, and that is signing up to like it so much, like this, the free stuff is great. I got to get behind that paywall so I can get something more. That is, and again, when that all relates to AI is a tool we use to help with that. You've mentioned to me before that you'll have discussions when regarding creating topics. I believe it is. You have discussions basically with GPT to give yourself ideas. I mentioned earlier how I'll use um, Google to search out a to search, like, this is the topic I want to discuss. I search, is there another video already out there with that title? Um, if so, and also what are some alternative searches? So I'm using that information to kind of develop how I'm going to create something, whether it's a blog post or video. The first two questions I always ask myself is, what do I want to talk about? And then why are my viewers or readers going to care? And I figure that out, and then that can help me shape the content. I'll use Google Trends to see what over a long time is doing well, as far as like what to put in as the post key search word, keyword, and take it from there. So essentially, using the different AI tools out there as just that, tools, but not replacing them with critical thinking. I mentioned earlier with Jetpack, they might say, oh, your score is only this when it comes to putting this keyword in. At the same time, I know, I'm like, well, it's not going to sound good if I stuff this keyword here 3 more times just to meet this quota. It's like, I would rather, compromise here to have it read human versus, just stuffing, keyword stuffing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that, honestly, it's funny. Again, going back to like, I'm thinking of all the white hat, black hat, and gray hat blog tactics from 10, 15 years ago, because people would try to, I mean, people have always been trying to game the system when it comes to content, trying to figure out but I do feel like everything that you just described with your process is attention to detail and care for your work. And I think that will always that's where people can find their audience. I think it's there's a large percentage of people that are like really loud about, oh, I can do all this stuff, and you can, for a while, I know, the platforms change as quickly as they need to, but somebody that found the wrinkle in AI and was able to make however many thousands a month on a voiceless AI channel, well, it's probably harder to do that now because the platforms don't want to be overrun by like garbage. But again, I don't, when somebody, because I know a lot of people that use the generative AI a lot. And I think if people use it and they figure out a way that works for them and it's meeting whatever goals they have, I have no problem with it, because like at the end of the day, like anything I talk about, if you see something of mine online and you ask me about the concept of like what all that's about, I can tell you in 15 seconds or less, like, oh yeah, absolutely. And here's what that is. So again, I think people that are really, the critical thinking piece is huge, but as long as you're keeping that, in your work, I think people are going to be fine in the long run. Cause I think we get tired of the mindless stuff.
Yeah, and the awesome thing to kind of will bring you to the kind of like closing subject, unless you have something else you want to add, it kind of goes into why you are doing what you're doing. I think there are a lot of people who, if it's that chasing those views, chasing to go viral. When I think it was, I'm pretty sure Gary Vaynerchuk, who I follow on different social media platforms, one of his posts kind of helped provide perspective. So if a video only has 10 views, someone might stop and laugh at that. But you know what? 10 views is you in a conference room with 10 people in chairs listening to you. That doesn't seem so minuscule when you put it in that frame. If you're talking about 30, you have 30 views. Well, that's you in front of a classroom teaching 30 people. Like when you start framing those views to, like visualizing it to what that looks like in, outside of, virtual reality, and what that would look like in, you're gonna not be satisfied with 100 views when, if you went somewhere and you could speak in front of 100 people and share whatever message you want, like you're not going to jump at that opportunity. I think it's important to, as I'm saying, that the whole thing is, and this gets all on to a whole nother topic, but is not thinking of yourself as being too big for something. And then also just the whole idea of just, again, that visualizing what 10 views is versus, being like, oh, I didn't get the 250,000 or the million views I was hoping for. And I think that's where it's like, if you bring passion to what you're doing, and whether it's 10 people or 10 million people, it's like that's that's still 10 people who stop to take their time to watch your video.
I agree. And I think, and your streak continues when you say a final thought to wrap up on, and you throw something out there that'll be our next conversation that we talk about, which is the psychological part of social media, because it's really interesting, because all of us, and this gets back to the quality over quantity thing, I would rather have a handful of people see my stuff that actually like it versus a bunch of people, because that's the thing. If you've ever, in virality, there's different levels to it, right? Like in some pieces of content, it's 500 views. In some cases, it's 1,000, 5,000, up to hundreds and thousands of millions. But the more people, it's funny, it seems like the more people they expose your content to, the lower percentage of those people that see it actually interact with it in a positive way. So, I mean, to me, and this is why, I mean, most of the time, if I post something on Instagram, I just turn that stuff off, like with the views and the like counts and the shares. And because it's like, there's, again, this will be I've got a whole nother, this is a whole nother conversation on the psychology of people trying to do things online. The social media metrics mean nothing. I mean, they really, a lot of people are posting on social media because they want to blow up. They want to gain a following. Why do they want to gain a following? Because they want to be able to monetize their audience. But then they find out that if they are able to do that, that the platforms typically change the monetization every so often, and it's never really in the creator's favor, I think, the vast majority of the time. Okay, well, we're monetizing off the platform. That didn't work. Maybe we can get brand deals. And then they find out that the brands don't really want to pay them. The brands want to give them free product to promote to their audience, and they're probably promoting something that they wouldn't necessarily use regularly unless the brand was giving it to them, and the audience never likes that. Like there's a whole, like, you want to talk about it, chasing the carrot or jumping through the brass hoop. There's a whole thing of, like, if you use social media because you're trying to, like, become an influencer, it's weird because you then have to do all these things that everybody else is doing. So what are you actually influencing? But I do think there's a way of approaching social media and a way of approaching all of this internet stuff to where you can connect with people. And if you have an offering and a business that comes off of that, you can build a business, but it's not the way that I think a lot of people think it is. And I say that from being in that ecosystem with people that really wanted to be content creators. When I was evaluating it for myself, like, was that going to make sense to do? And then I had the privilege of actually working with a company that worked with content creators. So I kind of got to see, like, one, what it was like interacting with them, and two, what the true amount of people that were successful on particular platforms and like how much money they were bringing in. There are people that are making massive amounts of money, but percentage wise, you're talking about micro percentage points of 1%. And there's a lot of other people out here thinking that they're going to be the next whatever. So fascinating stuff, though. Next conversation for sure.
Yes. I think the word that kind of sums up what you were just describing is authenticity. Like, viewers, people want to see someone being authentic and not be like, hey, check out this product because they sent this to me, and it's, and it's great because I got it for free, and I'm promoting it so you can sell it.
It's really,
but let's, that's all, we might be something we can fit into in that psychological aspect of social media when we do that discussion.
We'll get to it for sure.
Yeah. In the meantime, instead, you mentioned your call to action earlier is always to have people, is emailing you or going, that's your main call to action. You want people to email you. You want to connect with them. And your email is Daryl, DARYL, at yourlevelfitness.com. I will put that in our video description, along with your website and all that for people, that the websites you mentioned today, like the offline, off social media platform.
Yeah, they just go to yourlevelfitness.com. I mean, that's basically it. Like, they can get all the information on yourlevelfitness.com. Okay. Emailing me is the best thing, because like, I know there's messaging, like, you can message people anywhere. I don't check my messages. Like, I like my inbox because it's like one thing I can focus on. So
it's condensed. It doesn't overwhelm you. It helps out a lot. So if that's what works for you, you know it, and you put that out there for your brand, that's what works. So that's Daryl's call to action. My call to action is always, don't blend in, blend out. But before you continue to go out there and blend out and stand out and be your best you, make sure you're at this point. So go ahead, hit the thumbs up to show you've liked today's video. If you, again, earlier I asked, about when you use Google, are you going down? Are you just looking at the AI overview? Or are you searching through the actual, website and figuring out a good source? Share that, or just share your experiences with AI down in the comments. And then until next, if you continue to get more, be more likely to get more videos like that and be notified by YouTube when I publish new videos. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the bell icon. And again, until next time, don't blend in, blend out.